Welcome to the Craig Mostyn Group 15-minute learning series. IT training designed for the Craig Mostyn Group by TIOMS. This is session 2 in the 3-part sessions on time and stress management. In session 1 of this course, we learned all about getting organised. Here in session 2, we're going to look at how we take control. It is very common for the people that do plan their time to do their daily plan in the morning of the day. Now, the problem in this thinking is that you leave work the previous evening and you've got all evening and through the night with things on your mind about what you're going to do potentially the next day, week or month. And so the idea is you do your planning at the end of a day. You clear out of your mind all of the things that you're thinking of, what I must get done, what have I got to do tomorrow, and get them written down. That's the most important thing, is to write them down. You will find then that when you go home, you will have a much more enjoyable break and evening, and potentially you will no longer wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh, I must do that tomorrow, or what about this, or what about that. So the key is do your planning at the end of the day for tomorrow and not first thing in the morning for today. Similarly, for weekly planning, do that on the last day of the week, normally Friday afternoon. Give yourself an hour or so before you go home to plan the key things for the following week. So plan what you're going to do on Monday and the key things for the rest of the week. Again, write it down. This will give you a much more enjoyable weekend. You'll find that you're not thinking about work all the time because you've planned what you're going to do and you've got it written down on paper and out of your mind. Give your mind time to relax. And then looking at vacation planning. Before you go on vacation, put some time aside to do the planning of what you're going to do when you get back to work. Make sure that you've gone through that for probably at least the first week back at work. What are the key things you're going to do? Again, write them down. Put your house in order before you go on vacation and plan your return. Empty your brain before you go away and leave it nice and empty for a pleasurable break. Keep your mind free for the important thinking. So therefore, write things down. Use pop-up reminders. Use your calendar. Use tasks. Make to-do lists, whatever works for you, that allows you to keep your mind free for the important thinking, and everything else is organized and planned elsewhere. So we've talked about making a selection of plans for previous days or weeks or after vacation. But in order for you to make the time available, we suggest you put that time slot in your calendar. So each day you have a DAP, a daily action plan. Maybe start it at 4:30 till 5. Block that time out, make it your own. Don't go to meetings that time of day, don't do anything else. That's your time for your plan for the next day. And of course, if we've got a daily action plan, we also need a weekly action plan. So create the time slot in your calendar for the end of each week for a reasonable amount of time, about an hour and a half, to go through what are my key actions for the following week and what the main things I've got to do the first day. What's the main things I've got to do on Monday, and then a more summary of a plan for the rest of the week. Block it out, make it your own. Don't let that time be used for anything else. And of course, before you go on a vacation or you go away for a few days on a training course or anything like that, do the same thing. Block out a bit of time before you go to plan your activities when you come back. Staying on using the calendar. If you've an agreed activity to do, work out how long you expect that to take you to achieve, and look at your calendar, find some free time and block that time out for that activity in your calendar. Make yourself unavailable for other things so that you know you've got time planned and blocked out for you to do something you've agreed to do. Now, meetings are important things to organise, and we'll have more of a discussion on these later. But for now, with meetings and your calendar, ensure that you block out at least half an hour before a meeting so you can plan what you're going to do during that meeting. You might need to prepare something, read through some documents or whatever it might be. Also, make sure you've blocked out half an hour after the meeting so that you can make any notes that you need to, plan any activities that you've got to do, and make appointments and so on in your calendar to do these things. Now, one extra thing to think about is if the meeting is not in the building, in the office that you're currently in, you're also going to need to add time for getting there and coming back. So if it takes half an hour to get there and half an hour to get back, and it's an hour's meeting, and you've blocked half an hour out at the beginning and half an hour out at the end, that's actually a 3-hour block out of time during your day. And that way you see how easily your time disappears because of meetings. Now here we're looking at time that you can't plan. Things that drop on you from high, things you have to do right now. It's really important to get these done. We call this CEO time. Of course, if you're a CEO, you might want to call it board time. But it's a piece of time set aside, more of a contingency of time set aside each day for things you don't know about that are just going to come up. And the last one of these we call my time. So this is about blocking out a bit of time each day for things that you know you're going to have to do. So every day things happen, like you get email to read, you may get letters to read, there may be documents or papers that you need to read, maybe filing to do, organising, whatever it might be, the things that you know happen to you or you have to get done each day. Make sure that you've blocked out appropriate time to do them, and then that's also locked into your calendar. And so we can see an example here using the calendar in Microsoft Outlook. We've also used colours here to indicate various types of time. So here you can see at 9 o'clock I've used half an hour for my time. Let's just have a look at that in the actual appointment itself. So we have a reoccurrence. We can say make this happen every day at 9 o'clock. Say OK. And the categorization that I've got in blue, my time. Now if we look at all categories here, we can see that I've made my own types of category, and you can simply do that by choosing ones that are already there and then saying rename, or you can create a new one, choose a new color and give that a title. And save. So you can see that's my daily, my time. It's got a reoccurrence in it. This is preparation for a meeting, traveling to a meeting, attending a meeting, traveling back and documenting. That ends up taking 3 hours. CEO time, chosen in green, I can also do a recurrence of that daily. And finally, my daily action plan here, recurrence of that, again daily. And then that's all preset for me. Now you can see that all of these are marked as busy. If I want to put in some time that I'm going to allow people to maybe book a meeting or so on, but I want the reminder in there, I can book that time. And I'll go in here, say book at 9:30. I'm going to have a couple of hours to do some testing, but I'm not going to make it busy, I'm going to make it free. So when I save that, it will save into my calendar, but if somebody wants to see if I'm available, I still am available. Now moving on to how much time do we actually have? Now, one thing that I've heard in the past is I can plan or I can do, but I can't do both. I haven't got time to do both. And to me, this indicates a person that reacts to crisis, allows poor management of others to become their problem. They wake up at night worrying about activities, and there is never enough time for them. So what can we do about that? Well, first of all, you decide what to do. Now, the diagram here is very familiar. Someone's got an amount of time to do a piece of work. Maybe we'll call that a week. So they've got from Monday to Friday to get a piece of work done. Forget how long the piece of work is. It might only be an hour, might be 2 hours work. But this is the normal process. Work begins here. We get the, whatever, until suddenly panic sets in. I haven't planned it. Suddenly I remember I've got to get this finished today. So we're doing panic, panic, panic. Then we actually start doing the work whilst probably having a good cry and maybe or maybe not hitting the deadline. So understand your deadlines and their impact. Communicate your intentions of task completion and negotiate what needs to be done by when, and ensure you know what needs to be done by when. Don't end up doing twice as much work as you need to, in the same way as don't end up doing half the amount that you should have done. And communication really is the key to success. Make sure people have communicated to you exactly what has to be done and by when, and make sure that you communicate that you are or am not available to do that piece of work and offer a different end date. That communication is the key to all success. So given that we've all got loads and loads of different things to do all the time, prioritization is a must. We can't do everything at once, so we need to plan how we do things in a given sequence. So we may have large important things to do, average size thing to do, and many, many, many smaller low value things to do that don't really matter whether they're done or not. So here, the chicken bucket indicates how much time we have available. So how do you fill your bucket? Well, the chicken is indicating the large tasks. If you don't get the chicken in first, you won't be able to get any chicken in at all. And so, the way to fill your bucket, the way to use your time, is you put the big items in first. You put the chicken in first, then you fit some fries around it, indicating the medium-sized activities. And then if you want, you can fill it all of the gaps up by using the gravy, indicating the smaller activities. Of course, if you filled the whole bucket with gravy first, you'd have no chips and no chicken. Now we find that a mind map is a very good way of planning your activities, looking at those large, small and medium activities that you've got to do, looking at an aim and the activities and tasks that make up the job to get that aim completed. So what often happens is that people start the process and get totally bogged down with the first item and then the second item, trying to work out the infinite detail for each one of those. What is it? How long is it going to take? Who's going to do it? Etc., etc., etc. For each element, one at a time, is what bogs you down, and you end up staring at a blank piece of paper, trying to think, how on earth do I start? So a good way to start is with a mind map, like we see here in the top corner. And then the important thing is not to worry. For each item, do not worry about how, when, who, and how long it's going to take. Get all the tasks down first, and obviously do them on an electronic medium. Doesn't matter what it is, a spreadsheet or a Word document or anything, so it's easy for you to reorder. And then once you've got all the tasks down, then you can start picking out what are the most important ones, what are the lesser important ones, which ones fit together, which ones have to come before or after other ones, and then look at how long they're going to take and who's going to do them. As mentioned earlier, meetings are a real important thing that can kill the available time that you have. And often meetings can be very non-productive. So if you're invited to a meeting, you should know the reason for the meeting, what you are expected to contribute, and particularly if you have to prepare anything in advance, what is the agenda, who else is going, and what the expected outcome of the meeting is. So you should decide if the meeting really is important for you to be there, or should somebody else be there instead. And in the meeting, you should ensure that notes or minutes are taken, actions are noted and assigned with an expected completion date. Minutes or notes should be issued within 1 working day at the end of the meeting. And you should also take your own notes. So for your particular action, you've made some more details, and then you can plan those actions after the meeting. And finally, on meetings and actions, sometimes just say no. Sometimes you are not the right person to be at the meeting, or you're not the right person to be doing a particular activity, or the activity you've been given you are not able to do within the timeline presented. It is always far worse to say yes and then fail to deliver. Just say no. Everyone knows where they stand. Now here's a little thing to think about when you're assessing your time. I'm sure you've all heard of the 80-20 rule, and it applies to all sorts of different things. Here we're looking at the amount of time we spend on doing a task and the value of that time. And it's pretty well accepted that 20% of our time provides 80% of our results, and 80% of the time expended provides 20% of our results. So what does that mean for you? Well, quite often, dedicated people who really want to do their job well strive for 100% in everything. The result of that is their head is filled with all this stuff, all these minor bits of work that are just getting in the way of the important things, the important 20%. They have absolutely no room to think, they can't plan, they can't see the wood for the trees. And so plan the important things. And if you hit them with 20% of your effort, you'll probably find that 80% gets done. And finally, as a bit of a run-up to the third course in this series, here we start looking at how you actually feel. This isn't about planning. This is about how you actually feel within yourself. And as an example here, we've used the golfer where there's a water hazard in the way. Now, normally they'd make that shot with no trouble at all, but just because there's water in the way, suddenly his mind starts getting filled up with doubts and everything else. So this is about getting the positive mind, saying that you know you can do this, I know I can do it well, I've done it before, I know I can do it right. Now the power of the mind in sport is very well known, but you can use that same power in the workplace to improve the way you feel every day. And so it's up to you. Only you can control your feelings and you choose. You can either be positive or you can be negative. You can decide to stay with the positive thought and you can choose how you feel. So that's the end of session 2 in our time and stress management series. The final session, session 3, will be presented next month.